computer. So we're now recording, and then also just as reminder, in general, I'll keep everybody on mute just to limit background noise. You may have to unmute yourself to speak. So sometimes I found that I have I don't know why, I think we kind of both try to click on it on the same time. You can raise your hand like this, or you can use the participant, in the participant box, you can raise your hand virtually. So those are just kind of some housekeeping items. Other housekeeping items, tonight is June 5th. Tonight. And so tonight there will be a discussion on the two popes that will be led by Faith and Shannon. It starts at 7 p.m. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. If you do not have the Zoom information, it was I know it was in the e-news, but if you don't have it, let me know. Actually, you can just send me a chat and I will work on getting it to you during this session so that you have the Zoom information. But it will start at 7 p.m. tonight with Shannon and Faith, the two popes. It's available on Netflix if you haven't watched it.
Yeah, and Dana, let me talk to you a moment after class about that. So.
Okay, so everybody will leave, and
Stay a moment. Don't go.
I won't. And then next Friday, we will start our next study, which is total change, a little historical. We're going to go back. We're going to look at a new Reformation from Luther's world to ours. So we'll learn a little bit about Martin Luther and the Protestant Reformation. There are videos, just like we just did with this one. So I will start again at 9:45 and show you the video. There might even be a little, I didn't even look. There might have been like a little snippet video. I can go and search for that while we're in discussion, and I can always play it at the end. If you don't have the book, no worries. Feel free to join. If you want the book, you can get it on Amazon or through any other, Cokesbury. It's through Abington Press, so you can get it through that as well. Any other household items or announcements that we need to make? Just as a side note, and I'll plug this so Reverend Chelsea and I will start, I will start, Reverend Chelsea and I will start a study on June 24th. Who has somebody trying to come in? Okay. I do not have.
She's talking about the movie tonight.
Yeah, Donna's asking about the questions. Oh, did you guys send out the questions to people or no?
We didn't. I don't think we sent them out, did we, Shannon?
No.
Unmute, Shannon.
We didn't send them out. Only people that emailed us. But I gave them to Dana. If that's okay, you could send an email.
Yeah, I'll send an email. I'll send it to the whole group and just let people. I'll do to my whole distribution list. So, and just saying, hey, just as a reminder tonight, here's what's happening. Here's the questions. Here's the Zoom information so that everybody will have that.
And if you don't want to watch, if you don't want to join the Zoom conversation, you can still think about the questions.
Correct.
When you watch the movie on your own.
Okay. But then just can you please put in the chat the info for the Reformation? Yes, I will do that. I will do that as well. And then just so you know, in your e-news, you should also see, so Chelsea and I will start a study on June 24th. It's on, I think, a Wednesday at 4:00. We're going to use a book called White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. It really talks about white privilege and systemic racism. I do want to say, if you want to join this study, we invite you to do so, but I think you have to be at a place where you're already acknowledging your white privilege. If you're not there, I think it could be challenging. There's no right or wrong. I'm not going to have a conversation about that right now, and I can discuss it with you I can discuss it with you offline if you'd like and give you more information, but I want to put that out there. I think it's going to be a great study, but you really have to come to the table already kind of being in that space.
Willing to listen and learn without taking charge.
That would be another
the
thing.
One who has the answers. Just
right.
listen and learn.
Right. That's absolutely right. I started to read the book. It's good. It's available through audio. I don't even know if you can buy the book anymore because it's like just flown off the shelf at Amazon. But I'm doing it. We have audio and I have it on Kindle. So it's available through both. Okay, so I'll put that in I'll put Rob Foucault's book, A New Reformation, in here. And then why don't we go ahead and just get started with prayer?
Does that mean me?
That's you. You're cute.
Okay, let's be in prayer. Gracious God, we are glad to come into this space with you and with one another. And we're glad for this journey of the past few weeks as these parables have challenged us, convicted us, confronted us, comforted us, and made us uncomfortable. And as we look at the world around us, we realize once again how living is your truth and your word. And so we pray that in this time together, with this particular parable and all its implications and all its ramifications, that you will lead us to a deeper truth about ourselves, about one another, and about our way in the world. That you will give us a new insight of what it means to passionately and compassionately care for others. And that you will help us to even more be a witness of your love and your grace in the midst of the world. Amen.
Amen. All right. So I think if I can, I have, I think some of you took a little poll that I've done before, but I thought we could kick this off. If you want to, I'm going to launch it and see if you can see it. So I have a little question for you. Were you familiar with this parable before reading the chapter? The answer is yes or no. So I'm going to launch this poll and you can go ahead and click.
You can, because only I can, but.
Fine. I think it's like one per person. Oh, wow. Way more people said yes than I thought.
Yeah, but the real question is, did you like it? Was it among your list of favorites?
Okay, well, we could do that one as well. But I was just kind of curious to see if anybody if it was, because I had not. I don't remember ever hearing this parable. So it's probably a little self-serving.
I voted no, but it was because it didn't register in my mind, but the theme.
All right, well, hold on, Donna. We're going to get there. Hold on. Let me go ahead and end the poll, and I'm going to share the results.
Okay.
Okay, so you can see. So it's actually interesting that, there's a couple more folks that had heard the parable before, but still a good percentage of us and I am a no. I should have voted. I guess I didn't vote. I'm a no. So that's kind of a fun thing. Now, all right, let me stop sharing this. Let me go to my next question. Launch poll. I don't know if you're gonna. Okay, what do you think this parable is about? Now you could actually click, I think, a couple of these options. So you could click a couple of these. I think it's multiple choice. I don't know if anybody can see it. So what do you think the parable is about? Do you think it's a warning about the complacency and self-centered indifference that wealth can engender? Do you think it's teaching us about the afterlife, a condemnation on wealth and people with wealth, or none of the above? You have your own idea. So I'm gonna let you. I'm gonna walk away for 1 second. Brandon? Faith, I'm gonna mute myself. I need to make sure Trevor got up and is picking Leah up from her horseback riding lesson. So I'm gonna mute myself for a minute.
Okay. Everybody finish the poll? Okay, only, Dana's the only one that can see the results, so I can't tell you what they are. But as soon as she comes back, we'll. I guess the third question in the poll would be, and you can just kind of wave, how many of you liked this parable?
All right, I'm back. All right, I heard
Okay,
the last one.
there's,
But here's the result of this one. Oh, okay. So most people selected the first option. Looks like a couple people selected teaching us about the afterlife, and 4 said none of the above. So 4 people have a totally different idea. So that's okay, fascinating. All right. And then I didn't, okay, so Faith, all right, so I'm gonna stop sharing this now. All right, so close my polls. All right. So your third question was what? How many people like it?
yeah,
We could do a hand raise.
if you were ranking your parables, I don't think this would be among the top 10.
June is like, no,
Yeah.
no, okay. No, all right, got thumbs down here from Joanna. Oh, wait, Shannon is a thumbs up. Okay. My mom's a thumbs down and a thumbs up. I don't know if that's confusing, but possibly my entire life. No. Mike's a thumbs up. Okay, so we got a little mixture of everybody here. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and Donna, let's start with Donna, and then will anybody else have a thought on these poll questions? We're gonna jump in, but Donna, I'm gonna go ahead and unmute yourself and give us some thoughts. Wait, hold on, you're not unmuted. Unmute.
The first question I had trouble with because I would have preferred to answer it, I'm not sure. That was the one about, were you familiar with it? Because the theme was so recognizable, at least the theme that I saw, which was that second question about warning us about how we should behave, more or less. So that's all I had to say.
Okay. Mike, go ahead, your hand's up.
Well, I came into this parable thinking of it as the second response to what's it about. And wound up coming out of it with, oh yes. And the reason I like it is because anytime I get challenged, I think it's a good thing. So.
All right. Jonathan and then Shannon. I saw Jonathan up there. Go ahead, Jonathan.
I had a little different take on it. Something that he didn't mention was one of the things that stood out to me, and it's a comment that's made throughout the Bible. Remember when he says, well, what about my brothers? And Abraham says, they have Moses and the prophets. And the point is, all of these things have been available to us, and we just forget them. We ignore them. And we need to recognize what's been given to us as guidance in how to live correctly and how to believe. And to me, that's a great message in this parable. And I just didn't want that to slide by without being recognized.
Good, I think, yeah, okay. Shannon, go ahead.
The reason why I really like this parable is because I don't think it's about heaven and hell. There's a lot of biblical scholars that don't think this is about eschatology. It's about living right now. And like, don't be an Abraham, I think is the moral of the story. Like, he didn't have mercy. He didn't, let the rich man, have a second chance, and that we should be about giving people second chances and third chances. And so I just don't, I think it's kind of like we need to read these parables through the lens of the two greatest commandments. You know, what does this tell us about how to love God and how to love our neighbor as ourselves? So that's the way I look at it.
Excellent. All right. Carol Sadler, go ahead. Oh, you can't unmute yourself? Can you hit unmute? Does it say something on your, there you go. Go ahead.
There
Go.
it is.
There we go. Well, it just seems to me like so much is all coming together in my mind now, having read this chapter about this parable, and then I watched the little speaker, I don't know who her name was, but Reverend John had put her on his.
Oh, the pastor,
Oh,
the female.
DS. The DS from
Yes.
Pittsburgh.
It just, and it just all seems to be kind of coming together. And I said that I didn't choose one of the possibilities, even though the first one probably seemed the closest to the way that I felt about the parable after reading the chapter. But it doesn't just apply to wealth. It just applies to all of us that are indifferent to the needs of others. And so I just said none of the above.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Carol Sharp. Wait, go ahead.
Unmute, Carol.
Nope, you're not unmuted. Go ahead.
Okay,
There you
there
go.
I
There you
go.
go.
One thing that struck me, especially with what's going on in the world with endemic racism and everything, was that even though the guy, he still treated Lazarus, like an inferior person. Lazarus, please get me some water. I'm so parched. Or Lazarus, tell my brothers what's going on. That really kind of struck me that he still didn't get it. That's it. He,
Yeah.
like many of us don't.
Yeah. I like that the author did point that out in the book. He was like,
Yeah.
still, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, who did, he didn't ask Abraham to go get him water
Right.
or to,
Right.
he still treated him like a servant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Any other thoughts on the theme or anything that resonated with you before we kind of go on to the next topic? All right. So where's my little agenda here? All right, so we talked a little bit about what we think this parable is about. So, and this kind of goes along with it, is what is the rich man's sin? What is he guilty of? What is he guilty of? What is he guilty of? And we've said a little bit about that. Anybody have a different take on it? Go ahead, Joanna. You're unmuted. Go ahead.
It reminds me of a quote that I heard at a conference on the same subject, and he was white, and he was talking to a group of Black women, and one of the women said, "You must remember that privilege is invisible to those who have it."
Mm-hmm.
And I think that applies here, and it applies to many of us where we are complacent or unaware of the privileges that we have and how they are at the expense of other people. But yes, I think that privilege is frequently invisible to those who privilege is frequently invisible to those of us who have it.
Yes, it is. Yeah, very well said. All right. I wanted to share, I sent this out. I don't know if everybody had an opportunity to look at this, but Jason created this for us. Am I right on that? Jason did this? Yes. Okay. And I thought, and maybe even Shannon and Jason can talk a little bit about this, but let me share this image with you. Share. And hopefully everybody can see this. And I have smaller versions of it, but you might have to move around your little faces over here to really see everything. But this is an image. Shannon and Jason, do you want to talk to us a little bit about this? Because I love it.
Sure, I'll talk about it since I made it. But I heard this parable. My pastor in Alabama gave a sermon on this parable, and in his sermon, he referred to the homeless man, Lazarus, as someone that was invisible. The rich man did not see Lazarus, and so I got inspired by that sermon and thought, well, what would it look like if maybe there was a third person in the story? So I made this image and I added a little shop. So there's a little shop out near where Lazarus is staying, and so what if the shopkeeper actually sees Lazarus or is not shut in like the rich man? So like in the image you see behind the gates, this is sort of a gated exclusive area where the rich man or rich people would stay, and maybe this homeless man Lazarus is right here right at the foot of their gates, and but they do not see him. But what if the shopkeeper does, and he has all his goods and food out in the open, and so that's sort of a symbol of being generous with what he has. And you have other small little things like there's a word in Hebrew on the shop window. It says shalom. This shalom in Hebrew means hello or peace. So it's sort of this welcoming and generous attitude, I contrasted against the rich man, or the rich people behind the gates who are closed and do not see this Lazarus. And so going with the theme of invisible, I didn't put in an actual character, an actual person, but sort of represented the Lazarus as sort of maybe well, so there's a dove in, it's hard to see, but yeah, there's a dove on the chair near the makeshift bed, and so that's sort of like I put a dove there because I was thinking like it's kind of like representative of the Holy Spirit, where it's described that the Holy Spirit descended upon Jesus like a dove, when he was baptized. And so I was thinking, well, maybe the shopkeeper kind of sees the Holy Spirit within this man, Lazarus, and but the other people behind the gates can't see that. So another little interesting symbol is like the clock. The clock is almost striking noon, so it's kind of symbolic of a new hour is about to come, a new time is about to dawn for this man, where he is invisible now, but later will not be visible, as in the parable goes. He's later becomes visible to the rich man, when Abraham comes and rescues this Lazarus. So, but there's a lot of little things in there. I don't want to keep going on forever, but this was something that was made out of being inspired by the story. It's the idea too that we can be each person in the story from time to time. Like we have the ability, the power to be the shopkeeper, someone who does see the Lazarus is at our gates, and maybe sometimes we are the rich people as well who do not see, but sometimes we are the homeless man, Lazarus, who needs salvation as well. So
it's wonderful. I'd love to go ahead and ask folks, do you have questions or thoughts on this, reflections? Love to hear what other people, and go ahead and it's hard for me since I keep the screen up. I want to share it. Unmute yourself. Let's be thoughtful. So I'm trying, so if you have something, go ahead and unmute yourself. Jonathan, I see your hand is up. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
All right, I have this thought. It's been bothering me ever since I heard that they're going to have this meeting on Wednesday. Faith has challenged us to open our hearts and minds and come into it with an open mind. And I felt challenged. But I see the same thing, the same challenges here in this parable. And Joanna was just saying that we are blinded to our own privilege. And so I'm beginning to wonder out loud, what is it that I'm blind to? What is the message that this parable and the book on white privilege are trying to talk to me about? How am I supposed to change my view of myself and how I respond to life? What is the message here? And I suspect the message is you're supposed to be open to other people and to their way of life and be ready to help them if you can. I mean, all of that makes sense to me. I have to share with you, one time Jan and I went to Mass together. She's Roman Catholic and I'm Methodist. And we sat right behind a very interesting couple. He was Black, a pretty strong young man, and she was a beautiful blonde white woman. And they had a child. And the child was very well taken care of. Had a little girl, had pretty hair ribbons and well dressed. That whole family was working well. It did not fit the pattern that I'm used to as a white privileged person. But I admired how well they were doing, and I learned to grow from that, that yes, you can see how this can work for different people in different ways. I think that's the message of what they're trying to teach today. And I wonder if anybody else has a different point of view or a wiser point of view of what we're supposed to learn from this. How am I supposed to change as a white person?
Faith, I'm going to let you, I have somebody at the door real quick, a FedEx delivery, so I'm going to mute myself because the dogs are barking.
Okay. I see someone has a hand up. Does somebody have a hand up? If you have a hand up, unmute yourself.
Donna.
Yeah. Donna, go ahead.
What I had said earlier about this being such a familiar theme to me, of course, I grew up in the Lutheran Church, so I know what guilt's all about. They crammed it down my throat. But anyway, I still live with some residues, and I never feel like I do enough or give enough. And I think that privileged people, all privileged people, could probably do more. But does that satisfy God to make a decision about how much you can give and draw a line at some point? That's a constant struggle with me. During this coronavirus, and even just as the rioting started, I sent 2 small checks to the churches that 2 of my dear female friends are serving without being ordained. They are struggling to keep a dying church alive or struggling to reform it. And I just had this feeling like I wanted to do something to help somewhere. And I didn't have enough money to solve the problem. But I wanted to relate to these friends that I somehow could feel their pain and passion for what they're doing. And I still think, should I have given them more? I put in the little note that as I could, I would continue to send something. And it was more for me than for them.
Okay. All right, Donna. Faith, you want to say something? And then
I would just say I would go back, because I think that's a struggle we all have, and ask ourselves. But I really want to go back to the point that Jason was making in the picture. Because I don't think it's about how much we give. It's about who we see, and who we don't see, and how we see them in relation to ourselves. And that I don't want to minimize your concern, Donna, or your question, but I think there's a wider issue here. Lazarus is truly invisible, and it says to us then, who are the invisible ones? Who are the ones we would walk past and not even acknowledge, whether we have something to give them or not, but not even acknowledge them as a human being. And I love this image. In fact, I want to borrow this image for other things, because I think it is so powerful and captures it on so many levels. And I think one of the things we're wrestling with in these days is the way we see or don't see people, and ourselves as well.
Shannon, go ahead, or Jason, go ahead.
I recently watched on Netflix the 13th Amendment, about how broken our prison system is. And it broke my heart. It really did. To think about that there's people that are in prison maybe for a lifetime because they messed up 3 times, because they had 3 strikes. Maybe those 3 times were just smoking marijuana, and sometimes we view that issue as, just an issue of crime instead of an issue of trauma. There's so many people that use substances because they've experienced trauma, and I think there's just a lot of invisible people in prison, and that system is so broken. And I think this parable is trying to help us, encourage us, like, you can have heaven on earth or you can have hell, and I just don't think Jesus was a person that wanted to send people to hell. That's not a loving God, and it's sad that, like, I think at our church, we've dropped a line of the Apostles' Creed that says after Jesus died, he descended into hell, and he liberated people. I read yesterday in 1 Peter that Jesus went to hell and proclaimed the gospel in hell, to rescue people, these spirits in prison, and so I think this parable wrecked me, and it helped me, because it made me question, like, who is God really? Is he trying to punish the rich? Is that what this is about? Because I think a lot of times these parables, we think it's one thing, but it's really something completely different, and I think in a way he's showing, Abraham's right and Abraham's wrong. He's right in the sense that maybe Jesus is foreshadowing his death, that after he died and he was raised from the dead, people didn't believe, but he's also saying Abraham's wrong, because that's not how Jesus treats people. Right. He doesn't not have mercy.
I do want to support Shannon in the effort. If you have Netflix and you have not watched 13th, it's a documentary. It is phenomenal. And it goes back to a little bit what Jonathan was saying. And what I would encourage, or not, I don't, what I have found for myself during this very challenging time is how can I actively listen and educate myself. As a white person, I have no idea what it is to be oppressed. I don't. I was born white and I have a privilege every day because of that. So what I need to do is I need to learn. I need to learn. I need to be quiet, to listen, actively listen to people of color, and I need to educate myself. And so the 13th, which is a documentary on Netflix, starts that. It's one way to start it. The book White Fragility is another way. There is a group here in San Diego called Showing Up for Racial Justice, which is specifically for white people. It came out of Black Lives Matter, and Black leadership encourages white people to go out and really educate white people, because who are we spending most of our time with? White people. My guess is you don't have a ton of African American friends. Yes, maybe you have a couple, but you're spending most of your time with white people. And so anyway, those are just some tools. But to Jonathan's point is, it's not necessarily always giving, it's education. It's education, and that's how we grow. A couple of comments that got put in here. I want to read them. First, June said, he's guilty of not loving his neighbor as himself. So that's what June said. Chris Rogers said, one way privileged people could do more is to ensure inner city schools have the funds to provide poor children the same quality of education that we provide our children and grandchildren. One or more tutorings for those in need, support more state funding. Absolutely. If you're looking for after school programs to support, let me know. We work with Community Housing Works. Does everyone know about the charity SmileAmazon.com? Yeah, so this is Michelle. If you're using Amazon, you can use Smile Amazon. And Smile Amazon, if you select a charitable organization, and then percentage of that will go to that charitable organization. If you have any questions on that, let me know. I can also help with that. All right. Carol Sharp and Carol Boyer, I believe. Let's go ahead. Carol Sharp, go first. You have to unmute yourself.
Yes. I guess one thing that keeps coming up to me during the tumult of the recent tumult, and also the parable kind of made me think of it, is like, it's one thing to observe, what's going on, or to observe Lazarus sitting there, let's say, but it's another thing to understand and get it. That's what spurs you on to action. Like, get it in your guts, not just in your brain, but in your guts. And there have been several commentators that I've heard over the past week or so. One was Bakari Sellers, who was on CNN, and he this was after the death of George Floyd. He was actually sobbing on television, the anguish that after all the years and everything that's happened and everything that goes on, he couldn't tell his children, you're free and you can be what you want to be and do what you want to do. And that broke my heart. I mean, that really spoke to me, that I'm trying to get it. And so that's the education part, and to really do something. So, and that goes along with the parable so well.
Yeah. All right, Carol, you're on. Can you unmute yourself? And there you go. No?
Got it.
There you go. Go ahead.
Okay, I kind of lost my track here because I was thinking 5 minutes ago. I had a question about that organization called Showing Up for what? I didn't get the rest of it.
Showing Up for Racial Justice. There, I'm just typing it in. There's a North County chapter and a San Diego chapter.
Okay. And then I just have a quick comment about, what would satisfy God? That's such a huge question. But to me, for myself, hoping to try to satisfy God is remembering always, no matter who I'm looking at and where I am, to understand that that person, that individual, was made in his image, just like we are. And so if we can look at every person that way, that was made in his image, it would make it easier, I think, for us to accept, no matter what color they are, what ethnic background they're from, you know, how their economy, whatever, wherever they're at. If we can just remember to try to look at every individual outside of our home as in his image. Because that part is, how do we even see those who are less fortunate? And he saw everybody, no matter what level or state they were at. Jesus saw everybody the same, just loving genuinely. And he knows our heart when we're concerned. A few people had mentioned about feeling guilty because they can't give enough or whatever. He always knows our heart in everything we do and every decision we make. We can fake other people out, but we can't fake God out. He knows our heart no matter what we're doing. So I try to remember those things, but this whole racial thing is, it does break my heart to try to understand, because being born as a white person and living mostly around white people all my life, it's hard to really understand what they deal with. Like, are they fearful every time they walk out the door? That is just so tragic.
Yeah.
And one more thing I wanted to ask. That picture that we saw was so brilliant.
Jason.
And I was wondering if there's other pictures like that for other parables.
Jason, are you creating other pictures for other parables?
I'm not creating any others. I have a couple.
Yeah. Well, perhaps if you want to share them with us.
John August Swanson has done some of that. Not quite as, it's different than what Jason did.
Yeah.
But there are images for some of the parables, and then you look at them as you look at Jason's, and you see what you see in them. But he's done a little bit of work with that. We could give you a list, Jason, and tell you what we would like to have come out of the image, and then you can do the image.
Yeah, so if you see the box down here with Shannon and Jason in it, Jason's the one that created that image.
I have a couple others that might be somewhat relevant, but not. But yeah, I can get back to you on that.
That's no worries. Thank you. We appreciate it. We're glad you shared. Yeah. It is 10:44, and so if we want to do some small group discussion, we want to be mindful of that. The breakout rooms. Question is this came out of, if you have the book and you're on page 97 and 99, this is where the author talks about this self-centered indifference. So do you feel this phrase, self-centered indifference, accurately captures the attitude of the rich man in the story? So I'm going to write here. So if you have the book, page 97 to 99, self-centered indifference. The author, so it says on page 98, the author defines self-centered indifference as knowing about the needs of others and not caring. Now, he didn't say knowing about the needs of others, but he said not caring. I think that's important, not caring. Do you think self-centered indifference is a problem among Christians today? Why or why not? So that's the questions kind of before you, is on self-centered indifference, pages 97 through 99. If you have the book, I try to put the question in. Did people see the question last time in the breakout room? You did. Okay, yes. I'll do it again. So I'll go ahead and we'll go in for about 10 to 12 minutes. Breakout rooms. We're automatically gonna do. So we'll be 4 breakout rooms. You may, hold on, I gotta unmute you. I'm gonna unmute you, and you might have to click to join the breakout room. Unmuted, breakout, 4 rooms, create breakout rooms. I'm gonna open all the rooms, and you may have to join. Okay, the rooms are open.
police.
About to say something really.
Faith, you want to unmute yourself?
I did, but somebody said I have to say something really quick and we didn't hear it. Who was that?
I don't know.
No?
I think it was Joanna who was speaking in our group and we got cut off.
I
Carol
think it was
Sharp.
Carol.
Though. Yeah, Carol that was saying that.
Oh, Carol. Okay. Carol Sharp.
Oh, I was saying that Joanne was about to complete a thought that I wanted to hear the rest of, if she would share.
Okay.
My thought is that there's more than one invisible entity in our society now. It's not just the poor or homeless. What also is invisible is the endemic prejudice that exists in so many people and in the police departments that has not been addressed adequately. And I have never been subjected to police brutality or even police aggressiveness, and that's part of my privileged position, I think. But I have a son-in-law who is Chinese, and it shocked me when he told me what he's been subjected to. And I know him as a fine person. So many of us just are not aware of what goes on in the minds of some of the policemen.
Mm-hmm.
Myself. Faith, do you want to, oh wait, Mike King. How about Mike King? We'll have you do a comment and then we'll wrap up with Faith. I want her just to have a little bit of time, if you want to point anything else out that is important. Mike, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say that I agree that policemen in general wind up with a very challenging attitude, let's put it that way. But if you look at the world they see every day, they are trained to defend themselves. And a lot of their response is based on what do I see and what do I feel like. So to me, we have to get past the just blanket idea of the police mentality is horrible. It's answering the question, well, these aren't all bad people. Why is it that way and how can we fix it? Not, it's just bad and we have to destroy it, because we're not going to get along real well without some form of police assistance. They are actually here to serve us. I'm sorry, that's political.
I think maybe some of the departments are missing a great resource, because now they have a lot of officers who are men of color, women of color. So it seems like they could use those people to help them and understand some of the problems better. And they've got the resources right there to help.
All right, Faith, you want to share?
Just a couple. Ray, you asked me a question, and I will get back to you on that, because that's a much longer issue on that. One of the things I pointed out in my small group that I just wanted to raise on all the parables was sometimes we try to make one parable sum up and speak to the entire gospel, answer all the theological questions, everything. And as I said, it's kind of like asking one sermon to proclaim it all, and you'd never have to hear another one, which would put us all out of business. But I think you look for, like in this parable, what is the main issue that is being presented there, which I think is not a condemnation of the wealthy, there. It's not to say that if you know, the Bible doesn't say money is the root of all evil. That isn't what it says. It says the love of. It's when we misuse that. So it's not condemning that. I do go back to it. I think it is saying, open your eyes, you know, see the people that are in front of you. But yes, see them as children of God. And this is sort of preaching, but yes, see them as children of God. But that's the first step. The second step is to get involved in the systems, the organizations that allow them to be children of God and to be seen as children of God. Because yes, I can see you as a child of God, and I do. And I think that's the first step, and I think that's critical. But we live in a society where systems, organizations don't allow that to happen. And that's where we've got to get engaged in it. So I had to confess to Dana. She was nice enough not to tell you, but I always go back to my sermons to see what I've said on the parables. And I had to confess that immediately I could only find one sermon on this particular parable. Now, not this particular theme, but this particular parable. And it was in 1992. Now, fortunately, it did say some good things in that sermon, but I'm confessing at that time, it was hard to preach. And like many pastors, I avoided it. And there are themes today that should be preached that it's hard to, and so it would be easier to avoid it. So.
It's absolutely, that's growth and development for all of us, is the uncomfortable place, and whether or not you're willing to dip your toe in that water, and you're going to come out with some bruises, maybe a broken bone. It's not going to be easy, but that's how we become better people. So it is 11:06, and I see people kind of dropping off, so I definitely want to be, sensitive to that. And if you need to take off, totally fine. It would be, since this is the last session of this, if you have any feedback on this session or on this study series, I think we'd love to hear it. We did it all through Zoom. No, wait, did we do the first one in person? No, we did everything through Zoom. So, you can certainly feel open to give us feedback right here. If you would prefer to make it private, you can do that as well. But I'm just kind of curious. We always like to hear, any thoughts on it as we begin a new series. So we're open to that. And then any other concluding thoughts, we're available to be on here for a little bit.
I like the way you use the breakouts times.
Yeah.
You're very, very good. You're learning a lot about Zoom. You did it very well.
And it was funny in the very beginning. We're like, okay, we don't think we could. I mean, it's hard to be, for me, on Zoom, more than an hour. But you can see how like an hour can just really fly by, because you do have to give space for like unmute and mute, pause to hear somebody's voice. Yeah. So it takes up some time for that. Let's see. So yeah, Ray gave a comment to Faith. I like that Faith says there are not universal answers to any particular parable. Absolutely. What time is your group on the 24th? I think it's at 4 p.m. on the 24th. I'll send out information about that as well. Zoom was good for the class study. Great. I'm glad that it worked.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Carol, go ahead. You have a question? Unmute yourself. Well, actually, I'll just go ahead, unmute yourself. There you go.
I've always found the parables a little challenging, so I really appreciated this series. I appreciated you a lot in your teaching, and also Faith, your very knowledgeable answers and things. I appreciated that. What I would hope for and wish for, and this is probably wild, but there are 40 parables.
Yeah.
It would be so nice to have a study to cover a lot of them that we're not familiar with, that would help us, because this is only 6, and a lot of them are the ones that most people were familiar with.
We could do that.
So
We
if there
could
was
do that.
ever if there was, you could?
Yeah.
Well,
We could throw them in along with other studies, like maybe 2 or 3 weeks on a couple new parables, and then 2 or 3 weeks on it. They're the heart of Jesus's teaching.
Okay, well, keep me on your email then, because I would love to know when you're going to be studying other parables, because I thought, wow, there's 40 of them. There's not enough time. It's like we could go on for almost a year.
Usually,
I would love that as a transition kind of thing between our books.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, usually
That'd
if you
be
get on
great.
the distribution list, you don't get off unless you tell me. So
Okay. Okay.
that tends to be a little bit of my challenge. I literally manage it on my own, and so I try to I try to go through it and see if like there's people that I just have not heard from in a while, but you tend to get on and you don't get off.
You don't leave
unless you ask me. If you ask me, I always try to.
Anyway, thank you so much. I've appreciated all of you so much.
Yeah, thank you. It's wonderful to have you. Yeah. Any other questions or thoughts? Marie, go ahead. Or are you just waving by?
No. I also, Ken and I have been talking about the whole study for a while too, because we have studied a lot of the parables coming from our background and everything. Faith has given us such wonderful little nuggets to chew on that make them all a little different and make us think a lot more about them. So
thank you.
We appreciate it greatly.
Thank you.
Yeah, and there are many parables, Faith, I've never heard a sermon on.
Like this one.
Like this one. Okay. and I understand that
they're tough.
That pastors want to avoid these tough issues.
Yes.
But that's what I need to hear. I need to hear the tough ones, like the one about the bridegroom and the poor guy that was thrown out because he didn't have a robe.
Right. Or the workers in the vineyard. Now there's one.
Yeah.
See, there's another one. That just wasn't fair. That wasn't fair.
But now we know why.
Yeah, now we know why. You see. So thank you, Faith.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Oh, excellent. Very good. Very good. Yeah.
And I